start this lesson, which I have titled Joy and Delight, let me show you a photograph. I'll ask the camera folks to not put the video on the photograph and I'll explain. So, this is my latest personal joy and delight, my newest family member, little baby Adeline, who I met this past week on the occasion of her 4th day of life. Isn't she sweet? Isn't she sweet? So the virtual audience, just imagine a beautiful newborn, because the family is asking that we not share any photographs of her in a way of protecting her from that public consumption as long as possible. But that's little Adeline. You can just leave it up if you want. It's distracting, maybe not. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, as I held this tiniest baby, as you can imagine, I welcomed her in a sacred way into life very mindfully, and I said a silent prayer of blessing. There was a lot going on, but as I held her, I just blessed her. And later I got to thinking, what kinds of things would I want her to know as she begins her journey on this human plane? And basically, what I feel most important to share with her is what I want to share with you this morning too, and that is, let joy and delight guide your days and your choices. It sounds easy, but I want to unpack that a little bit this morning. Joy and delight. Now, I don't know about you, but so much of life around me seems hard. And sometimes it feels like the world is on fire with so many issues that seem overwhelming. Yet here is this little newborn baby with her entire life in front of her, and she's going to be joining us in this same world just as it is. And the information she needs is the information we need to remember too, right? So this week in our Summer of Intentional Living, Sunrise to Sunset, I want us to look at the idea of not letting our joy and delight muscles atrophy from lack of use. Okay, so I'm going to introduce you to one of my favorite podcasts this week called We Can Do Hard Things. Now, I have a library of hundreds of episodes of topics that I find very interesting and full of everyday wisdom. But the episode that I'm going to ask you to listen to this week is about how to get your joy back with a writer named Ross Gay. And the important points in it are some of the very things that I want you all to know, I want Adeline to know, and I hope to model for little Adeline throughout her life that I get to share. And I literally hope the lesson sparks something big for you this morning. So Adeline and all of you, here are some things I want you to know about joy and delight. So let me start by saying this. So while I was in Colorado meeting little Adeline, I was consciously pursuing some of the things that keep my own joy and delight muscles strong. So if you follow the things that I post on Facebook, it won't surprise you to see that I was traveling and immersing myself in adventures that take me into natural beauty. I was seeking out animal encounters. I was spending time with my family. I was enjoying live music and sharing all of it with Terry, all things that give me joy. So it's so important to me to devote my resources and my time to the things that bring me joy. And that is one of the things that I hope Adeline always knows about her Aunt Laine. Technically, I'm actually a cousin. But yeah, she's a cousin's grandchild. So yeah, she's a cousin. But all the younger cousins, they all call me Aunt Laine, so I'm assuming she will too. Anyway, so I've always encouraged everyone to have a working list of things that bring you joy, or things that make your heart sing, or things that give you happiness, whatever you want to label the list, and to make it your goal to have at least 100 things on that list. And I give that challenge in so many of my classes because the first time I was asked that question, Laine, what gives you joy? I was dumbfounded by that question. No one had ever asked me something like that. I had no idea. But that was nearly 30 years ago now, and I've had a list of way more than 100 things that give me joy. And I know many of you in the room do too, because you've been in those classes and I've forced you to do it. But if you don't, and this is the first time you're hearing this assignment, take the time to make a list of at least 100 things that give you joy. So look back over your life. Think about the times when you lost track of time or you were absolutely delighted by an experience, and put it on the list, and make the list full of easily accessible things if you can. Then go about living those experiences on purpose as often as you can, at least every day. Okay? And as I said, some of the things I was doing last week most definitely are on my list. Baby animals, wildflowers, airplane travel, holding a newborn, smelling their head. Joy, 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 joy. It's all joy stuff. You know, and I hope Adeline gets in touch with her inner joy and never loses herself long enough to forget that the quest for joy that children naturally have is a part of our purpose for being alive. But I really wish I could introduce Adeline and all of you to a man that I met in Wyoming last week. His name was Ryan. And I think he illustrates my lesson today even better than I do myself. The question today is, what gives you joy and delight, and how much are you willing to devote to its purpose, to its pursuit in your own life? Ryan seems to have mastered this lesson. Let me tell you a little bit about Ryan. So Ryan, going back, Ryan was raised in Wisconsin, and as he grew up, he fell in love with two things: snow and wildlife. And for his love of wildlife, his grandfather, when his grandfather retired, he had a ranch, and if I'm getting this right, he devoted that ranch to elk and deer. Okay, so wild animals. And so Ryan was around people who fed his appreciation for wildlife. And snow, Ryan loved all winter sports: skiing, snowboarding, winter hiking, and the exploration in the freezing temperatures of winter. And he devoted himself to these two things starting very young. But as is typical, Ryan got caught up in his life in Wisconsin and went to school, and then he admitted to spending a lot of time and money spicing up a Harley Davidson motorcycle. He said he could stop traffic with this motorcycle, this very special Harley, and he loved it very, very much. But deep in his heart, as the years went by, he wanted to shift his life to his greater joys of snow and animals. And he felt this pull to go from Wisconsin to Colorado. So one of the truest lessons about joy and delight is sometimes you have to release something good to have something greater. So Ryan made the very hard choice, and he sold his beloved motorcycle so he could move to Colorado, where he followed his joy into wildlife photography and winter sports. So once he immersed himself in his bigger joys, what happened? He met his wife, who also loved those very same things. They loved snow, they loved wildlife, and together they built this wildlife photography business and ran an art gallery in Salida, Colorado for many successful years. And they spent their free time skiing in the backcountry. Now, y'all, he would hike up these mountains with no ski lift or anything, and then he would ski down, and then he would hike back up, and then he would ski. It sounds horrible to me, but awfully chilly, awfully chilly. But he determined that his greatest joy, even more than a Harley, even more than having an art gallery in Colorado, his greatest joy came from photographing grizzly bears. Okay, he was overjoyed and delighted with grizzly bears. Now, guess what? They don't have grizzly bears in Colorado. Grizzly bears live in Wyoming. So, to pursue his deepest joy at this moment, he and Chris sold their art gallery and moved to Jackson, Wyoming, where they could be within 30 minutes. He told us several times, it takes me 30 minutes to get to grizzly bears, and still have all the more snow and extreme snow sports than you could ever dream of. So now in Jackson, for the last 6 years, they are both tour guides, 3 to 4 days a week. And then on their off days, they track and photograph the bears. And in the winter, y'all, They spend entire days in sub-freezing temperatures, hiking and skiing and pursuing winter wildlife encounters. Burr. That's all. So when we met Ryan, we met him because he was our tour guide of Yellowstone National Park. And we booked a tour. Spirit is so amazing. We booked a tour and there were supposed to be as many as 7 other people on it. But since we happened to be the only 2 people who signed up for that day, it was me and Terry and Ryan in a car going through Yellowstone. And we spent 12 hours with Ryan, letting him share his utter and palpable passion and joy with us. Now, as you know, I believe that the universe is a responsive one. And it turns out Ryan shares this belief himself. He loves nature, and obviously nature loves him right back. You know, many people spend days at Yellowstone and never see what they want to see. They walk away disappointed in the lack of wildlife that they see. We had an absolute full day of spectacular moments with wildlife. It was almost like a Snow White thing, like he did a little whistle and things started coming. Animals just kept showing themselves to us. There was a mama moose and her baby within 15 minutes of him picking us up, something like that. 4 grizzly bears before 8 a.m., including 2 cubs that were just a few months old. And there were majestic elk in the distance, but there were also, I have a butt picture of an elk on Facebook that you can see very close proximity, and we saw more bison than we could count. But the icing on the cake for me was the river otter that we spied on right before leaving Yellowstone for the day. Otters are one of my spirit animals, so I was really tickled to see the otter, but just so much wildlife. Orion modeled for us a life immersed and dedicated to his personal joys and passions, and how the universe responds to that by heaping more joy in his direction, because he was moving towards the joy was moving towards him, and his energy was so attractive that strangers just kept approaching him to take their pictures. He's a professional photographer, and they wouldn't come up to me or Terry, they'd come up to him. He wasn't in a uniform or anything, he was just dressed like us, but they would say, would you take our picture? I'm like, you picked the right dude, because he's a photographer, right? He was just radiant, and everyone responded to his energy. He just didn't let anything get in the way of his living a life of joy and delight. But what gets in our way? I think a few things do. One is competing values. Okay, so we value the things that bring us joy, we do, but we also value stability and security and material comforts. You know, Ryan mentioned really having to stay dedicated because living in Jackson is really expensive, and they don't have a brick and mortar store anymore, an art gallery to support them, but it was worth it. His life reflects a personal dedication to having joy, and the experience of it to be one of his very highest values. So competing values get in our way. The other one is prior choices can also keep us from living a life driven by joy. Sometimes we feel stuck in things we've already chosen and are afraid to make big changes like Ryan and Chris were willing to make to live immersed in their passions and joy. It was impressive that they were willing to consider their prior choices and then look at what they'd learned and then launch from there into deeper and deeper joy. But I think one of the things that blocks many of us is this: pursuits that are less fulfilling but still good, such as his life in Wisconsin and his beautiful Harley Davidson motorcycle. It was a good thing, wasn't necessarily the deepest fulfillment. And I think his Harley Davidson motorcycle is symbolic of something in all of our lives that we love, but it blocks us from going into deeper joy. So we can easily talk ourselves into staying content with what we already have and what we're already grateful for, and not reach for something even more delightful. Can you relate to those kind of common blocks? So with Ryan as a great example, what are the big messages about finding joy in living, even when life seems so challenging? You're going to be hearing a lot of these things, these kinds of things in the podcast that I'm going to be sharing with you this week. First of all, It's up to you to keep yourself connected with everything in the universe. You're a soul living on this human plane, and it's easy to forget that you are one with all things. It's tempting to withdraw and try to protect yourself from being seen and vulnerable. But joy is the awareness of your inherent connection with everything around you. The people, yes, but also the trees and the grizzly bears and the gumdrops and the beautiful things and the ugly things. You are connected to all of it. And joy is the recognition of that connection. Oh, that tree, I feel something with that. I'm one with that. That's that joy connection. When we can be in awareness of oneness, joy rises, and the God energy in you responds to the God energy in everything else. That's what joy is. So stay open. That's your second thing. Stay open. Some things are hard because you're going to notice that death and change is also a part, side by side with living. Things that you get attached to being a certain way will most definitely change and shift out of existence. And my suggestion is to not avoid the dying or the endings, but to accept them as part of the living and let those certain endings just invite you into gratitude. Accepting impermanence is the gateway to keeping joy and delight alive in your life. Energy will always take form and then shift into another form. Joy doesn't get stuck on any one form. And as I think of a young soul joining this world and even joining our personal family, I would remind Adeline, and I will remind you, to stay in joy even when the world disappoints you. People are going to disappoint you because they are not always going to be their best selves, and they are not always going to be able to know exactly how you prefer them to be. And they often try to pass their fears about living onto you. So you can get all wrapped up in the ways that they wound you and try to limit you. But if you can stay connected to your soul inside yourself, little Adeline, you can love others freely even when they get it all wrong, because you can choose to step beyond fear into a delight of your own. It takes practice. Don't get lost in the hard stuff. By focusing on the positive connection you have with all things, joy is found in that connection. And when we care for each other and the world around us, we create this beautiful fabric of our lives. So the big lesson is to notice the things in your life that delight you and lean into them. Then share them with others. Ryan got such great joy in sharing his delights with us, and we in turn shared them with the people around us. That's what the natural experience is with a group of people. Point out the delights and experience them together. Be ready to share whatever you find with another person. Point out the sandhill crane baby colt to your neighbor if it sparks your joy. Comment on the beautiful produce in the shop with the shopper next to you. Aren't the cherries this year delicious? Notice good things and watch others when they are delighting in something. The bottom line is, start small, but be determined to increase joy and delight every single day. Find the little delights everywhere you find yourself. At work, if you're still working at work, invite your inner spirit to lean into a friendship connection with a coworker. Delight in your morning cup of coffee, or take a walk at lunchtime and notice one beautiful thing along the way. I remember back in my work days, I brought joy to my daily tasks in creative ways. If I had a goal, I was telling actually a person at a doctor's office this week, she had M&Ms everywhere. I told her when I had a number of tasks to do in a day, I would line up M&Ms on my computer and I would eat one of them every time I accomplished one of those tasks. Those little colored candies just made my day. As I crossed things on my list, I also created a sticker system, a game with myself to keep my daily life engaging and joyful. By the way, M&Ms and stickers are on my list of things that give me joy. At home, bring joy to your space in ways that are meaningful to you. Burn the candles you're saving for a special occasion. Go ahead and light them. Plan meals that include foods that are on your list of things that give you joy. Turn off the TV and create an evening ritual of self-care that includes things from your joy list. Your inner spirit will relish in having a sanctuary at home. And when you're out in community, here or elsewhere, bring your joy to others. Volunteer and lend your energy to causes that energize your inner delight. Immerse yourself in something that matters to you and get more involved. Learn more about the connections you have with the people surrounding you. Joy awaits you there. So I'm going to close by asking Susan Clark to read her poem that she read at our beach Saturday. I will imagine that she's reading it to little Adeline and all the little souls just starting out, but know in my heart she's reading it straight to me.
So this poem is entitled Instructions Before Visiting Earth by a man named James McCrae. In the event that you wake up and find your soul separated from source and manifest into material form, don't panic. Your condition is only temporary. You have been selected for the opportunity of human incarnation. This 3D simulation is designed to break up the monotony of eternity by giving you a fully immersive experience as a distinct ego identity. Your body will serve as your physical avatar as you navigate a dense and dramatic reality. There will be many distractions, causing you to forget your true nature and origin. You will experience a range of emotions from joy to loneliness to despair. But remember, no matter what trials and traumas you encounter, your soul remains perfectly safe. At times you may feel lost or afraid. This is totally normal. If you ever need guidance, simply slow down your busy mind and bring your awareness to the quiet place inside yourself. On this planet, nothing is permanent. People and things will come and go. You will fall in love and form sentimental attachments, only to lose everything you hold dear. So cling to nothing too tightly, even yourself. And when it's time to let go with grace, for nothing is owned, only borrowed. As you walk among the people on the planet, try to be a good guest. Tread lightly. Remember that you are only visiting. Don't make a mess. Listen more than you speak. Give more than you take. Don't keep your soft heart locked inside a glass cage, protected from wear and tear. You'll never make it out alive, and time passes quickly. So come back with some battle scars and good stories to tell.